Hey guys, Sullivan here in Philadelphia. I know it's been quite a long time, but I thought that we would make some flower arrangements with what I think is probably the last of the flowers for this year, and I'll catch you up on all the things that have been going on. I cut a very strange assortment of things and tons of beautiful fall foliage. And I'm going to use some new vases, which I will talk to you guys about as I catch you up. So let's make some arrangements. So I really wrestled with how much to talk about my health stuff that I've had going on, which is why I took such a long break. But I really do try to share as much as I feel comfortable and really maintain some authenticity on all my social media. It's actually why I'm not super active on social media. It just wears me out. If I don't have anything to say, I can't really force myself to say anything. I ended up having weight loss surgery at the beginning of the summer. I don't really want this video to turn into a video about that surgery. I'll just say that I got diagnosed with celiac about 15 years ago and started gaining weight and had gained weight steadily over the last 15 years, never really being able to lose more than 20 pounds at a time. And at my annual physical in March, when I was actually just finishing up the greenhouse, my family has a history of developing type 2 diabetes. Women in my family struggle with weight gain as they get closer and closer to 50. I'm in my mid 40s. I don't know if that ever really comes up on this channel. I sometimes do look younger. But anyway, so I took this step to basically try to stop diabetes in its tracks, which it did. But I had planned to have the surgery at the beginning of July, which I did. And the recovery and lack of energy and not being able, I knew I wasn't going to be able to lift heavy things, but I didn't think that I would be so low energy. So the surgery really forced me to spend July and August watching the garden grow, which is fine. It was planned to do it that way. It's really hot out. There's not so much I want to do. But unfortunately, I have a history of gallbladder problems. So as I began losing weight, my gallbladder decided that it was no longer wanting to be part of my system. And I had to have a second surgery. I had my gallbladder removed at the end of August. So I basically reset the recovery clock. And now here we are. I think we're about 9 weeks on the other side of that. So the recovery from the gallbladder, it was a little more painful, but fortunately not as low energy. So I really don't want to turn my channel or my experience into any kind of like weight loss or anything like that. There are lots of resources online if you choose to explore that route. But because of the weight loss drugs, anti-obesity medication, and all of the things in the news, and people not really willing to admit that they are on or doing these things, I felt like I couldn't just like reappear after 4 months, and I've lost about 70 pounds since March. I didn't really think it was fair to just say it's like diet and exercise, because it's surgical and it's definitely carefully managed through eating the right combination of protein and healthy fats and pretty low carb. So if there are further questions on that, I will, I guess I'll read them, you can post them, and then I'll decide if I want to talk more about it. But it's obviously something that there's a lot of stigma around. I'm not saying anybody has to do it. This was just the choice that I made for myself rather than going through the injectables and things like that. And I'm happy to report that my blood work is totally back to normal in just the 4 months since the surgery. I guess 6 months or so since I had the blood work done. So I'm no longer worried about getting type 2 diabetes. This video could be like 2 hours long as I talk about all the ways I've lost 25 pounds at a time over the last 15 years, only to gain back like 30 or 40. And so, I hope that if it's something that you're ever struggling with, that you are able to get the information and make informed choices for yourself. So certainly not saying everyone has to lose weight or be super thin or anything like that. I just don't think it's really in my character to like pop back in here after a few months looking how I feel. I look different, a little older from rapid weight loss, but and not owning that I took medical steps to intervene for my health. So anyway, so that's where I was. And in that time that I knew I was going to have scheduled downtime, I am not somebody that sits still very well. And I had begun exploring making my own porcelain vases during the summer of 2020 and joined the local clay studio. It's a nonprofit where you can take classes, and I have an associate studio space that I rent there, so I have a place to do ceramics and access to kilns. So that is something that I have struggled to push forward. And I really wanted to solve a few problems in my making of new designs and then turning them from ideas into physical vases that you and, well, mostly people on Instagram are very interested in owning for themselves. And the reality is, after 15 years of self-employment and having taken on so many DIY things around my house, I'm aware of my own limitations in what I can do. And my approach to the most conceptual of my vases is much more like fine art, which means there's never going to be more than one or two of them available, which is not really a great business plan when you have the ability to make flower arranging accessible and make vases from a perspective of what makes a good floral design. And so while I still think that at some point I will try to approach my own very conceptual vases that I physically make myself available, the time frame for having somebody else do the production here in the United States means that I can get vases out into the world faster. Okay, so fast forwarding, these are 3D printed vases. I spent my summer getting better at 3D modeling software. I had started to learn it maybe a year ago and struggled. I'm learning Blender. If you're unfamiliar, it's a free, very comprehensive three-dimensional animation video. It's a very broad tool. And so I'm learning digital sculpting, which allows me to iterate ideas much faster, much like digital photography changed photography. You don't have 24 frames of film. You can delete all of the things that are unsuccessful. So learning 3D modeling, I can sculpt, but learning how to sculpt on a two-dimensional screen has been interesting. But this is all stuff that I can do while sitting down and healing from my surgery. I had first been introduced to 3D printing at like maker get-togethers in like 2012, 2011. The first 3D printers for home use were just kind of coming out. It's not something that I feel is ever really specifically targeted at women. The 3D printing community seems very focused on, gaming, cosplay, things like that. It's actually been pretty hard to find women that are really into 3D modeling and 3D printing. But like everything, I can watch the videos and learn what I need to and then take the parts of it that apply to me. For years, been working on my own 3D models. Here and there, they weren't great. And then there are services where you can send the file out and they'll print it and send it back to you. And so I did that for most of last year as I was trying to solve this specific problem with how to brand the bottom of my vases, which turns out they're not 3D printed, they're laser cut. That's a whole other thing. But I didn't want to buy a 3D printer until I really knew what I would do with it, how I would use it. After sending these things out and you pay about 5 times, 6 times because you're paying for the time in the machine. And some things take a really long time. But I recently had narrowed down the size and level of detail and functions that I needed for the way that I work, because I do intend to continue with these kind of very organic fabric inspired shapes. I required a specific printer that could print some supports and print the models. So this was a very long way of saying that I spent my summer learning how to sculpt on the computer and then 3D print prototype vases. So these are not available for sale. So this is a very long-winded way to say that this is step one in getting closer to making vases that are moderately priced and more widely available. I think they're still going to be in limited quantities, but the goal is to have a few of these things available this spring. Because I'm going to be working with a US-based manufacturer to help me get them out into the world. They're very busy at the holidays, and I'm not a speedy person when it comes to this stuff, so I was like, all right, you know what, let's just chill on, figure it out, and the goal will be to introduce some of the first pieces by the time the first early spring flowers are blooming in most of the US. This is the first time I'm actually putting flowers in any of these. The two that I'd like to work on are these two, but so my first shapes that I'm working on are all geared towards early spring, when things are short. And I brought these to show that there's a very steep learning curve with everything. Every part of this process has been challenging. This one made it this far before it fell over. This one made it this far before it fell over. It's actually supposed to be that tall, and it has this kind of cool swoop. But I do think the coolest part for me about seeing these things in color is that my vases so far have been white, and while that's great, because it lets the flowers shine, I'm realizing that there's a lot of opportunity to do color as well. I'm not using any kind of support. I have a ton of foliage, so we're going to be using that. Euphorbia has like milky sap. But this should be interesting. So I gotta admit, I've been like emotional and stressed, and I have some like trauma around learning things. I really struggled with mathematics in school, but I'm pretty good with geometry, but I can never get past algebra to get to geometry, where I feel like I would have killed it. But this program really can make you feel very dumb. We're gonna put that one away for now and work on this guy. And it was a lot of struggle. And then I would come outside to check out this Monarda. This is like definitely like the weirdest but most beautiful fall foliage in the garden. I was cleaning out the vegetable beds yesterday and saw this like all flopped over, and knew that between this and the snapdragons, I had to make a design with this. My new large format 3D printer that I am using to print the prototypes of these vases, it's a really nice printer. I did research for close to 2 years on what I wanted / needed in a printer, and it arrived, and it took me, it was quite big. I had to hire some guys on TaskRabbit to help me move it because I couldn't even get it off the pallet. So I knew I wanted this. I kind of refer to this shape as like an envelope. This is part of a series that I've been working on, inspired by this vase. I'll put it up on the screen. That is one of my shortest vases that I've made, and it's perfect for the beginning of spring when hellebores and muscari and tiny narcissus and daffodils and crocus and all the teeny tiny things that first pop up in early spring. And so this is something that I really think is like a need. I really want to make my vases work through the seasons, and obviously I think a lot about what makes a successful floral design and what will make it easier for you at home to design. So far we have Ascot Rainbow Euphorbia, which is sticky. This is Abelia, probably Edward Coucher. I have a bunch of them, and to be honest, they all look the same. All right, so I was really excited about the envelope shaped piece, and I wanted to print it right away, but because I'm learning new tools, TBD. This is butterscotch Amsonia. I will say it looks almost indistinguishable from the regular Amsonia in terms of foliage, but I don't know. And so I was rushing, like trying so, and you can't rush this stuff. I was trying so hard to get these vases to print. That's why I was trying to print the tall cylinder. I thought that would be cool. Some of the dahlias were really cool and tall, and I was like making these vases for all these beautiful dahlias. And let's talk about dahlias real quick. I'll give you the mini tour. The dahlias this year were incredible. And then we'll come back and I'll have made some more progress on them. So here I am, the dahlias look amazing. I know the weather's starting to change. It's suddenly the end of October. I'm trying so hard to get these vases printed so that I can make an arrangement in a new type of vase, since I've used my vase that I call the cinch vase pretty much exclusively for the 2.5 years since I designed it and made the first one. And as this is being finished from the printer, it freezes. And last year my dahlias managed to survive the first freeze because my yard is like a weird little microclimate, but not this year. I woke up, the vase was finishing. I want to say this one took 27 hours to print because it had to be supported here. And in that time, while the vase was printing, the dahlias all died. And so that is what happens, at least to me. I made this design at one point during the summer, but I didn't have any energy through the summer, and every time I would come out into the garden with the intention of cutting or filming or, just catching up with you guys, I would see all these things. I just didn't have the stamina to do the work that needed to get done until recently. This is what didn't die in the frost. I don't know how there's still echinacea. This one's Green Envy. So the goal of all these prototypes and things is to make arrangements in them, see how they work, decide which ones I feel strongly about that will help you make successful floral designs, and then get them out to you via hopefully one of the manufacturing. I feel like I would consider them to be my partner. This is just, it's a chunky stem and it's a little beat up. I don't think I want to use that in here. I would like to bring a little, you could go very purple, lavendery with, my mums, the only mums that survived this year are both 2 shades of lavender. I think we have Moira. No, that's Moira. And the reason they look like this and not the whopping heirloom mums you see from like a Floret or any of them is because I don't disbug them. Mostly because I forget about them. But if I removed all of these side shoots, I would have one giant mum. But I'm not good at remembering to do stuff like that. So I just kind of let them do their thing. This is Plum Perfect. It also looks good with this. But I feel like I want to try to bring in some more of the like kind of rosy gold tones. All right, so you guys saw the dahlias, and my plan for the dahlias is to just leave them because a lot of the kind of masses you saw of dahlias were actually just overwintered from last year. If I put them into the bed and they grow and I like the way they look with everything around them, then I just leave them. If they come back, exciting. If they don't, I usually try to buy a few new ones each year. This shrub just like, it never does anything. I mean, it's in a spot where it has like a ton of competition. But so what do I have coming up? Well, I'm going to try to make the ornament project happen this year by starting on it earlier. I am going to be doing a dried and faux flower and probably some grasses and things installation for my Thanksgiving dinner because Thanksgiving is a lot and doing fresh flowers for Thanksgiving is just usually beyond my capabilities. And if I order flowers from like the wholesaler, I feel like I have to use them. I don't know that we need any more. Let's see. Can make a mum work. Just feels like mum time. Go ahead and pretend that I was a good mum grower. And if it feels really easy going in, you probably missed the bits. Alright, well that's pretty. I'm gonna put this, and it won't be super distracting. Alright. So I guess we could go for a slightly more traditional fall palette. Let's see. So we have smokebush, butterscotch Amsonia, some calacanthus. And I really do love fall, autumn arranging. My favorite aspects of flowers are how weather affects them. You know, this calacanthus looked super dramatic and interesting when I made the Dahlia arrangement that I showed, that I guess I'll be showing again right now. But I just think, you know, it gets kind of flat when it's all that color. And this is just so interesting. And my smoke bush, which this is Grace. I have pretty much every smoke tree I can find. These lower to the ground branches show more color variation than the taller ones, which I wanted to keep the tall branches because flowers bloom on this year's wood. So you want to, if you want flowers, you gotta leave it. It's kind of amazing to me that I can have an idea for this vase. I really was thinking about short stemmed dahlias, where the taper at the bottom would make it easier to hold them in place, but the kind of flare and wave at the top might support the heads a little bit. I'm in my mid 40s and I went to art school and dropped out. And like I feel like my art education experience was like part analog and part digital. Like we just started getting like Mac computers, Apple computers when I was leaving high school. And in college, I went to UArts for 2 years. In college, we did things like handset typography and used drafting tables and things, but at the same time, the computer stuff was starting to come in. I'm this like kind of bridge technology generation. I use it very comfortably. I'm not like flummoxed by it, but I'm also still like sort of amazed and in some ways weirded out by it. Like I can't even get into how freaky I find the AI stuff. So this idea to me that now, you know, it's been a long process of researching and learning this stuff to get the 3D printers set up, to like learn how to use them, to model the files and then send them and print them successfully and all of that stuff. But it's also kind of like magic to me to be looking at a flower out in the garden and think like, what kind of vase would I want to put that into? And then in a reasonable amount of time, maybe not instantaneously, but you know, in 24 to 36 hours, I can print one, put some water in it, or maybe even no water, and try it out. And that is pretty much how I felt. I was at like a Martha Stewart makers conference, I remember in like 2013, 2014, and they were showing the first like kind of home, I think it was Ultimaker, which is a brand of 3D printers. They do a pretty good job of appealing to some of the craft side of the uses, but most of it seems focused very much on tabletop gaming and miniatures and things like that, which are all valid expressions of craft and art. It's just it's surprising to me that you don't see more people doing art or art meets functional objects. Okay. Some of these don't look so great. And why should they? It's 40 degrees outside. It's 55 in here. Actually, I'm a little cold. I found ceramics at a time when I was really like hitting a wall with the garden. It's like, who wants to go outside and weed when it's 105 degrees? And I want to say it was that temperature like every day for that July. So the clay studio became this place to still kind of think about flowers, because I went into it with this idea like I'll make my own vases and maybe planters and things like that. I just kind of like threw myself into it, and it helped me to see. I mean, it was extremely helpful during like a really confusing time. My weddings that I was under contract for were being postponed. I didn't know. My wedding business has slowed down considerably on this side of COVID. I've been pretty fortunate that I've gotten, I love my clients, but I'm not the right fit for every client. And I've had a lot of, I've been really lucky, but I don't do the volume, like, and I still only, I was doing 4 or 5 weddings a year. Now I'm doing 1, maybe 2. And so I have to replace my income in some way without getting like too heavy into it. So what was so amazing to me about the discovering ceramics, in a way, I had like every art student dabbled in clay and wheel throwing and pottery, you know, some of that stuff. Like everybody who does like a general art education has at some point messed around with these things. But I didn't think about it as anything other than I can explore my ideas for how I would want to arrange flowers from a step earlier. Like obviously the early steps are planning the flowers through the seasons, the color stories, things like that. So this takes it even further in the process backwards. What kind of shapes do you need to hold a bridal bouquet? What kind of shapes do you need for a large display? And that was really helpful for me in like a difficult time. And so I'm happy, because it's not easy to reinvent a business that you started and thought you were going to run in perpetuity, doing what you did, and to have it completely like dead-ended by something so unexpected. But also it gave me space to think about and imagine a world where weddings weren't the only thing I really did, or flowers, designing just flowers. Could I design other things? And yes, I can. Are they all going to be successful? No. But it's starting to feel more real. I want to use this rose Munstead Woods, but it is so thorny. I'll tell you 2 roses that have really surprised me. And I know not everybody's a fan of roses. I am, even if they get black spot or all the other things that everybody hates about them, because of this. This is Belinda's Blush. And this is Bliss Parfuma. Both excellent roses, just growing like champs, always plenty of blooms to cut from, nice long sturdy stems, and blessedly not that thorny. I have been better about wearing gloves this year and not making my hands like disgusting in the garden, but I have yet to find a glove that can stand up to some of my roses. So, like my waxed porcelain, it appears that the white PLA, that's the filament that this is printed out of, is susceptible to staining, which is really good to know, because originally I had thought that I would print most of the prototypes in white, but to have molds made of them and have them ultimately put into production, they need to be sanded and primed. None of these are really post-processed, because I'm only going to do that for the ones that I feel strongly about. So that's really good to know. You know, what's interesting as both a florist and now I guess a vessel designer is that as a florist, your goal is always to like draw everybody's eye away from the container. You know, you want the focus to be on the flowers. And I think that this does a nice job, but perhaps because of the starkness of the white with the foliage, this would be more successful in, yeah, it just kind of changes it. So maybe everything doesn't have to be white. I guess I didn't say why, but I'm so obsessed with my white porcelain because I made the clay body myself. Like I learned the chemistry of how to create a clay body and made, it's version 6 I think I'm on, which doesn't sound like a lot when, you know, software people go through hundreds of versions of things. But my porcelain slip that I make my pieces out of is specifically formulated for how I work, which out of the mold, I do some manipulation and cleanup and ruffling and things like that. And so, and also it's just such a clean white, which is sort of hard to do when you're firing something to thousands of degrees. It's sometimes that can make things turn creamy. So anyway, that's part of why I'm so obsessed with my white. But I don't know that everything needs to be white. Though finding a glaze that gives me this color should be interesting. But yeah, I guess if it was more of a cream tone, it might not stand out as much. I don't think these hold water, but there's only one way to find out. Oh, it's like weeping. All right, good to know. I'm glad I wasn't planning on putting them on my Thanksgiving table. Guys, well, thanks for catching up with me. I might post the full Dahlia walkthrough, which was just a quiet walkthrough with names. If somebody's interested in that, you can leave me a comment. And then it will be some holiday projects, again, using a lot of this dried material and faux material that I already have, and trying to come up with whatever I'm going to do with the ornaments this year. If you're unfamiliar with my ornament projects, I'll put a link to a few of them down, or I think I might have a holiday playlist. And I thank you guys for watching, for catching up with me, and I will see you soon. Thanks. Bye.